That's got beards these days.
Welcome to the Car Sim and Race Driver Show with me, Hugh Hattrick. And we have a number of fantastic people on our show and a very special guest as well. We have Jonathan Sutherland. We have Andrew Marr. And our very special guest, not that the other two aren't special, but an extremely special guest is James Ruppert. Welcome, hello. James. It's great to have you back on the show. Now, I had to actually intervene so that we could get started because we were having such a lot of banter. We forgot that it was the start of the show. So we are now here officially, and I've got a challenge for all our viewers. There is a car behind James. It's red, but what is it? That is the challenge. Now, I'm not saying there'll be a prize if you get it right, but let's know in the comments as to what you think it might be. And at the end of the show, we will let you know. That, so, James, it's great to have you back on the show. What have you been doing the last few months?
Well, a pleasure. Well, actually, I haven't been locked down at all. I've been working. I'm very, very lucky. I've got a family business that means I have to go out every day. So it almost makes me a key worker, I suppose. So I haven't missed out on driving. So I've been out in most of my cars just about every single day. So it hasn't seemed very strange at all. And maybe because I haven't got any friends either. So I haven't socialised with anybody. So the last few months have been exactly the same. Just working away because I'm very, very lucky to have a business that survives and thrives even in testing circumstances. So I'm very lucky. I've been driving around.
That's pretty good coin. Now, is that obviously a mix because you write for Autocar and for is it the Independent as well, or was it the
not anymore? I stopped writing for the Independent when they stopped paying me money. When the Independent decided, oh, you'll do that for free. No, I won't do anything for free because that's not how it works. But no, so
and you've got Free Car Mag as well, isn't it?
I've got Free Car Mag that still exists. Absolutely. I've got a nice controversial cover today. It came out today, and it said, should you buy a Chinese car?
Yes,
or more specifically, a communist Chinese car. And when you look into it all, every car manufacturer in the West is so deeply embedded in China. Yet China is a reprehensible regime, and really they should rethink things. And now is the perfect opportunity to do that. And obviously, I asked all of them if they had any comments to make, and all of them had a no comment button.
Yes,
and they all said it was very political, but it isn't political. It's ethical. And I think this is a question I'm getting asked more and more by people: is where cars come from, where products come from, and if products are coming from regimes or places they don't like, a consumer has every right to question that. So that's the long answer to what we were doing with Free Car Mag. But also I do a bangernomics mag as well, just for fun, every few months when I can be bothered to do it. And I wrote a book called Demotorized, and guess what? After it came out, we were demotorized. So maybe I'm a clairvoyant now.
It's a very good book. I've started reading it, and I got it from as soon as it went up on the Amazon thing when you got it there, when it had been given other reviews as well, and I thought I must get that. And it's true because we as the motorists, we are attacked by everybody, whether you live in a city or the countryside or anything. Now it's got to be a quiet car, or it can't pollute, or or you pay a fortune in congestion charging and everything you go. And it's amazing how fast that has increased over the last 20 years. It's been very anti-car. And what I'm trying to do...
And I mean, if you just look at what they've done to Park Lane, I mean, that's got a special place in my heart because I used to work there for a few years. But I mean, it's been decimated by cycle lanes. It's just unbelievable, really. I mean, I that's a major artery in London. I don't go to London anymore for these very reasons, but I don't know how anybody gets around there.
Yeah, no, it's something else.
And it's also quite easy at the moment, actually. It's quite quiet. I may or may not have been in Park Lane last week, but I couldn't possibly comment because obviously there's lockdown rules. But yes, it was very quiet, allegedly, in Minecraft in Park Lane. Yeah.
But no, isn't it funny though? Because in the old days, people used to like have a dodgy exhaust on a car. The boy racers would knock a hole in their exhaust pipe, and you would hear it a mile off, and then the police would eventually catch up with you and give you a warning, to get it fixed, or that's it. Now you don't really get that. I think cars, even most modern cars, even old Corsas that people have bought from the early 2000s and try and thrash around, they don't even do that anymore. I don't think the last time I can remember.
You live in the wrong place.
Yeah.
These 3 neighbours that wake me up at midnight. One of them sits outside my flat, starts the engine, and is running it for 10 minutes for some godforsaken reason with like this. Off they go. Because it's not had it retuned, I haven't got the correct back pressure, so it's got half the power it normally have, but it sounds sporty, innit?
The trouble is that people have these exhausts, and it's there to draw attention. It's like a peacock, isn't it? You're trying to draw attention to a young man, trying to get a woman's attention. But you turn around, you expect to see a Ferrari, I don't know, F8 Tributo or some amazing Maserati. You turn around, there's a bloody 2004 Honda Civic. And I mean, any girl is just going to turn on her heels and walk away, as Quentin Wilson would say. I mean, you draw attention to yourself and have a decent car,
So, to James, what do you think in today's age, as we've got a lot of people who watch the show who are kind of young and they love all the racing and things like that, what would be a good car for a first-time driver that's something a bit more sporty and that might not cost very much money? What do you think would maybe fit that bill at the moment?
Well, I mean, Fiestas have always been very, very good, providing they're not terminally rusty, but they're always, very good sporty cars to actually drive, deceptively sporty, really. And you can learn an awful lot with those. It's a bit like in the old days. I mean, you learned a lot with a Mini, but Minis most people can't afford anymore. So it really is cars like a Fiesta, which you can buy dirt cheap. I mean, even new Minis are quite fun, but they're still not particularly cheap. And there's a lot of issues with them as well. If you come across one which needs a lot doing to it, it's going to cost you a fortune to sort out. So I would stick with something like a Ford Fiesta because you can have a lot of fun. It's very subtle. It doesn't stand out, but I think as a driver, you will learn a lot about how to handle a car with one of those.
Yeah, it's funny what people buy nowadays, isn't it? Because before one of our viewers was saying I had a 1 litre Fiat Uno, and I miss a Fiat Uno so much. They were such good cars at Uno, because they were so light. But nowadays, young people used to buy things that were at least they had a hint of sportiness about them. As a first car or a second car, when they had a little bit more money, they would get something. Now you see young people driving things like a Renault Capture or a Vauxhall Mocha, and you think, good gracious, what's wrong with them? And even in 10, 20 years ago, you'd be getting every last ounce out of your Fiesta as you overtook somebody, and now they drive at 40 miles an hour on a country lane. Or a country, and it's like it's completely changed. The whole attitude has changed. How do you find where you are? Is that?
Yeah, that's right. I think we have to worry about car culture. I think it's changing a lot. You talk to young people; they do not buy car magazines at all. Yeah, so that is, quite a worry. And I think people are distracted by so many other things. Whereas when we were youngsters, there wasn't really a great deal else to do, so apart from muck about with cars and have a really good time. But I think people are distracted by all sorts these days, and it's I think that's a great shame because in this country we've got a fantastic tradition of making cars go faster or making them look different, and starting clubs and doing stuff like that. And I think that's dying off, and I think that's a shame. So we need to do something about that. And I think you're doing it with your show, by actually encouraging people to become enthusiastic again about cars. You can't leave it to old blokes like me who like classic cars now, because we're just boring and bigoted. We want youngsters involved.
I mean, I find, because I speak to a lot of people who do, motor racing and sim racing, and that's the big rage now because it's the gaming kind of culture. And they and I'm saying, well, if you like to drive fast and you want to race, surely you want a car that's quite nice and decent to drive and says something about you as well. Have a bit of an interest in it, and that's how I'm trying to kind of rekindle it. And in my forthcoming short stories, bedtime stories, that's what I've kind of aimed to do as well, to have kind of glamorous cars and people driving around and kind of making the car almost the star as well in the story, so that people will kind of look up to that, and also about speed and about fun and about living life, because I think that's all been dumbed down now. It's all the environment and all this kind of stuff. Well, we want to just live life and be free, and enjoy what comes to you. And I think, as you say, that there's so many distractions. It's either what's on Netflix or playing a game. And there isn't that kind of interaction with going into your workshop or your father's garage and seeing what he's got in there to go and fiddle about, tune up a motorbike, tune up a car, and go and do something. So this is where it needs to change, because I also think people at school, they're missing out so much, on great civil skills to be able to relate to people and have an interest that is practical and helpful. Because have you been like interested in cars like all your life? Has it been something that's been when you were very young, or did it come?
Well, with me, yes. I mean, I was upset. I lived next to a main road. It was the main road going into London from the east. It was the A11, so it was gridlocked the whole time. And according to my mum, I used to know what every single car was from basically when I could speak. So I could stand outside my house and there was just cars. So I was obsessed by it, and. I was very, very lucky that my dad sort of became more into cars because of me, and it was just something that I just never thought was any different. I just played with cars, wanted cars, couldn't wait to drive. So it was, I don't think I was unusual. I think a lot of people thought that way. You went from bicycles, but you just couldn't wait to get on something that had an engine, whether it was a moped or whether it was a motorbike or something. But as I say, the feedback I get from people now is people aren't as obsessed by it. But it was things like corgi cars. You just couldn't get enough corgi cars, Meccano sets, and all that. But everybody was like that. But I'm 108, and that's what people used to do then.
It's about freedom, isn't it? I think what Hugh and I, we grew up together. We sort of learned to drive together. It was about getting out, taking responsibility, and enjoying the freedom of having a car. And it's like young people today, they don't want the freedom. They don't want the responsibility, but we just wanted to go. I took my tractor driving test on my 16th birthday because you could drive a tractor at 16. And I used to go to school in a tractor. I mean, that's how I got around it. My mother didn't want me to have a moped, so it had to be a tractor. I had a Case 956 XL tractor, 4-wheel drive, air conditioning, key player, and I was cruising around the neighborhood at 16. I couldn't wait. It was kind of tragic, but I don't understand youngsters these days. But
do you fancy coming out to the dance with me tonight? I've got transport.
The tractor driving test was hilarious. The guy from the who's the guy who used to be a driving test? The DSA was a driving standard. Came to the village. And I just hopped out the tractor because you could drive the tractor without a license to meet for your test. And I just hopped out, as you always did on the farm. I grew up on a farm, engine running, door open. He said, turn the tractor off immediately. It could jump into gear. And I drove around the village, raced around a corner, and I had to an emergency stop. And that was it. I got signed off. And I was loose on the road with probably a 6-ton tractor hauling another 6 tons of grain. It was fantastic.
James, I've got a quick question for you. We're talking about back in our day, a million years ago. We wanted to fix things. We could modify stuff. I still have ideas of what I want to do to a Ford Galaxy or a Mark 1 MR2 to improve it. Do you think the problem today is that you physically can't? You can't access anything. And when you do access it, it's all electronic anyway. So what you actually need is a degree in software engineering to be able to do anything to it. Whereas back in our day, even with electronic fuel injection, it was simply enough for you to know how to do something with it. Change the injectors, fit a plenum chamber, whatever. Things were mechanical and simple enough for them to be modified or fixed or changed at home. Whereas now, even motorbikes, ABS on a motorbike, traction control on a motorbike, I'm hearing that you can now through Wi-Fi, you can hack into cars and effectively control all parts of the car because it's wirelessly connected and then connected to itself across the entire motor. How is a kid 17 years old going to be able to do any of that kind of stuff when the special equipment you need? What's your thoughts on that?
Is that me? Or,
yes,
yeah, I mean, I would completely agree with that. Is that obviously, yeah, it's white coat stuff with just about all cars now, and we've lost a complete connection with it. Because again, a thing that our dads and our granddads would do is, just for fun over a weekend, they would decoke, the head, on their Morris Minor or Ford Anglia, and that was something that was in car mechanics and something that everybody did. So everybody was in complete contact with their cars, and that has been completely lost. I mean, it's partly the manufacturers don't want us to get anywhere near their cars anymore, which is a huge shame. It's something that Hugh alluded to earlier, which is the education system. I went to a secondary modern school, and that was you did metalwork, you did woodwork, you did really practical stuff. And that is now completely and utterly missing from everything. In the business that I run, when you talk to people about measurements, you talk to people about installing things, they have no clue at all. Most people cannot, put a screw into a wall. It's quite frightening. So maybe it's a good job they can't touch a car. But these are skills. But these are really, really basic skills we have now lost. Because of our education system is now so poor from the practical point of view.
You've got to have gender studies. It's really important, James.
Absolutely.
But they can't change a tire or even,
Neither men nor women can do anything anymore. It's fair. There you
go. Yeah. I do remember, though, Jonathan and I, we had this old Vauxhall Chevette. It was one of the first cars that we ever thought we would buy and try and put it on the road. It was given to us from one of your staff at the farm. And it was ancient and it had lots of rust holes in it. And we thought in the end it wasn't really worth trying to repair. So we just used it as a banger. So we raced around a stubble field down at the seaside. But when we were in the position of trying to fix it, I actually think, did we not buy I'm sure we went to a shop and we bought a wing, a kind of front wing for a Vauxhall Chevette.
I'm not sure we bought the wing. We looked at the wing. We bought filler. But Hugh and I, we were just laughing about the state of modern people with DIY and stuff. Hugh and I are no better.
We are even worse.
We decided to fill a Chevette's wing with straw, and then you had to mix the fillet with kind of a hardener, and it would go off. But straw wasn't a good thing to put in by an engine bay because it gets hot in the engine bay, and it could cause a fire.
The thing was, when we were doing the bodywork, it was in a barn with lots of straw bales, and the straw was right next to it. And I think I must have accidentally hit a bit of the straw and it stuck to the fillet, and so it was kind of lined in with the car and we couldn't get rid of this stuff. And I thought, rather than do it properly, I would just do a half job and put it in and paste the whole lot together and hoped that you wouldn't notice, but you did, and that was that. So we had
it looked like a straw bale.
It
was a much better racing car anyway, rear wheel drive, leaf spring suspension. It was pretty good.
Yeah, but no, that was the thing. But you had fun with cars. Everything was about motoring and about driving. And I remember when we moved house, and we had this old house that was in quite a state, but its garage was full of ancient tools, ranging right the way back from the 1930s, kind of like upwards. And it had a rotavator, and they had taken the normal bit off, and they had replaced it with wheels. So it was like a trailer with this kind of engine on the front. And that was the first thing I drove when I was about 14 or 15. By myself, because my father allowed me to drive this thing. You jumped in the trailer and it had handlebars, and you could steer it, and you could drive it at all of about 1.5 miles an hour around the house. But that's what you could do because you were desperate to drive. And it's trying to rekindle that now into the young people, because you think, come on, they love racing and gaming, but it's like, let's get them out of the house and get them into a car or something to try and get them driving. And that seems to be the hardest thing to do.
You were kicked out of the house. Saturday morning, cartoons. You might be allowed to watch Tiz Was, but as soon as Grandstand or World of Sport came on, you were kicked out of the house. Go and play. You're back before it's dark.
Yeah.
Went back before it's dark. It was,
Yeah.
but
no, it's
you're not seen for 12 seconds. You've probably been murdered. Or put in, recruited into some terrorist group. I don't know. Whatever it is, it's that. They're all upstairs. I mean, my son, bless him, used to sit on his Xbox. His thumbs were massive.
he's like,
and every now and again, I was sort of like, come on, let's go. And we'd jump in the car and we'd go and walk up a mountain. But most of them, you know, he would have stayed there forever. He would have never seen the outside. A bit like me now.
how have you? I was going to say, how have you found, James, for your book, The Motorised? Because obviously it's been out a good bit and it's been well received. What have you found the feedback? Have people kind of agreed with your ideas about how the motorist is being punished and how the culture has changed, or have they said that's not true?
Absolutely. Well, there are obviously some people think I'm mad, and they may well be right. But on the whole, no. I mean, the people who bought it and read it and enjoyed it and given me feedback on it, it's all been, you know, relentlessly positive. It's very difficult these days to get books reviewed anywhere at all, really, because, you know, I don't know whether, you know, people enjoy reading or not, but the actual premise of the book just seems to have gone down well. As I told you at the time, I had no intention of writing it. It was mainly because I was on the BBC and they were appalling. I mean, they were just dreadful, as we all know. You know, I wasn't on with Emily Maitlis, but, you know, I might as well have been. And you know, it was the misinformation and the sort of aggression against the motorist and against the car. And there was no acceptance of the fact that, you know, people need cars, you know, to go to work, to do really basic stuff. You know, because some of us live in areas where there is no such thing as a bus.
I do think that our media class and our political class, they just don't drive. They live in cities. They have chauffeur-driven cars. They use public transport. They have no idea whatsoever about how most people, 80% of the people, go to work in this country. They just don't get it at all.
No, they don't.
And I think the car is seen as a symbol of freedom, and that freedom has to be taxed. I actually haven't read your book. I must get it. I will buy it. I think the symbol of freedom has got to be taxed. It's the one I think they'd love to get rid of it completely. I'm sure they would, and have everyone on their god-awful buses and overpriced trains. But because there is that symbol of freedom, then they will charge as much as you can. And to be honest, they could probably double the price of petrol, and I would still rather take the car than their coronavirus-ridden bus. So, you know, it's they can ramp the price up as they like.
Well, that's it. I mean, I think actually the authorities are surprised. They just think, well, you know, what more can we do, you know, to actually make the motorists suffer? And we have. So, you know, we paid, you know, the amount of tax that people have paid, the amount of restrictions, the amount of road works you have to deal with, just drive anywhere in the country. You know, it just drives you nuts. But people would still rather put up with that than the alternative, because the alternative is not getting anywhere on time and probably not having a job as a result. And that's why people like cars. They're convenient. They get you to where you want to go on time, mostly. And it's hugely convenient. And it does seem in the last, you know, what's been happening over the last few months is that all of a sudden, actually cars are really rather good, aren't they? You know, if we're going to play this social distancing game that they all want to play. I do think, I mean, I do believe that there is an agenda to get us out of a car and out of our cars, and I do detail that in the book, but it's all backed up with references. It's not complete, you know, mad tinfoil hat stuff. You know, I really do think there is an agenda, and as you say, I don't think they like the success of the car and that it has freed people up.
Yeah, and it's exactly what governments hate. Governments hate individuals having freedom to do what they want to do. Hugh and I, probably in the late 2000s, we were both in Edinburgh for 3 or 4 years, and we saw that city decline. And the bus stops were brought out into the live traffic lanes, whereas they used to be off the live traffic lanes. And that was to make sure the cars got stuck behind the bus while all the people got on the bus. So it just created problems for no reason. Had bus lanes which were operating from 7 in the morning till 7 at night, which is completely unnecessary. So in the middle of the day, there were traffic jams caused, more pollution caused, simply because of their political agenda, I would say, to just penalise the motorist. I'm amazed they didn't do congestion charging in Edinburgh. Actually, I thought they would have done that by now.
They only just lost that. They did put it out to an election, to a vote, and they lost it by quite a margin. Thank the Lord, because we hated it. But Edinburgh has been driven to insanity. If you, in the same way, James, as you don't like going to London, I can't stand going to Edinburgh, because from a city that was you could cross in 20 minutes way back in 1994. Now it takes about double that. And you're just stuck at lights everywhere for no reason. It's not the traffic, but you just sit there waiting, or you can't use a lane. So I just think, no, you just avoid it. But
your listeners in London will know about, obviously, the city can't putting the congestion charge up in London. And did he double it, James? Was that what he did?
£15, about 15
a
day.
And then unless you have a brand new car, you've got the ultra low emission zone, so you're looking at £30 a day to take your car into London. At the same time, they're saying that people should stay off public transport. So it can't halves the number of tubes. So you've got NHS staff going in and paying an absolute fortune to get to work safely in London. It's honestly, it's reprehensible.
While being told by Boris or whoever, I mean, they're all doing it, how important they are and how valued they are and how fantastic they are with their words, but with the action, that, like you say, having to pay double the amount to get into work to save people's lives and all this kind of stuff. It cracks me up. Absolutely cracks me up. Very nice.
I mean, what I've noticed, I mean, I had no intention of writing a demotorized 2 or a demotorized 2020, but it is effectively writing itself. There is nothing I have to do. I just have to bookmark all of these stories, and then at the end, I just might write them up and just say, well, there you go, demotorized. You know, they actually made it happen.
It almost writes itself. Just keep a diary. Yeah.
But it's interesting though, because cultures are different across Europe. You know, like the Italians, they love their kind of fast cars, and you know, I mean, I watched some of the programs on YouTube now with all this kind of generation of people with cameras. You know, they record everything, and I've never seen a country that has more motorsport, you know, on closed public roads than Italy. Any chance they can to close the roads and to race an old Fiat up it or something, or an Alfa Romeo, you know, they'll do anything they can to give it a go. So it's funny how certain cultures seem to love the car, you know, a bit more maybe perhaps than we do at the moment. But then I wouldn't really call them a kind of freedom-loving nation in terms of the Italians. You know, they've never had governments that are kind of in the same way as ours, I suppose. But so it's funny how the cultures are different, or the car makers are different, because they still seem to have a passion, especially for supercars. If you go to Italy, anyone who drives in a lovely car, you know, they are allowed to make some noise, and everyone loves it. You know, they kind of shake that, they clap their hands and they shout. You know, they support them. Well, if you do that over here, you know, they phone the police and report you. You know, if you've got a nice car or anything that sounds remotely decent, they'll complain at the first hurdle. You know, but it's funny how, I mean, even the Americans, I mean, they love their big, like their Dodge Chargers and their Mustangs. So there's maybe a little bit more car culture there, I suppose. But you kind of think, how can we get that back here? What's going to be the driving thing that we can help to change the attitudes of the, you know, of our younger generations to get them back into cars?
I don't know. We just got to make cars sort of cool again. I mean, the cars have been demonized really, and there's a lot of misinformation to sort of overcome, because, you know, children at school are told how bad cars are, you know, and how bad these things are, and so you know, I mean, in a way, for all its faults, I mean, that was a good thing about Top Gear, is that it was a program having fun with cars. So whatever you thought about it, you know, at least it was a very positive thing that the whole family would watch. So you know, that is the sort of PR that you actually need. But it's just, you've got to try and get people to look at magazines and stuff. You know, it upsets me that it's really becoming the preserve of older people. You know, the classic car shows are fantastic, but it's people of a certain age. People, you know, with all of these things, all the people doing it are old, and that's not what we need. We need people young coming in at the bottom. Otherwise, it will just die off. So it's very difficult to know how to do it.
I always thought, for a joke, it made me think there of all the crazy things going on in Paris, that, you know, with all these riots and cars going on fire and stuff that they don't show you about on the news, you think it's a good way to teach the kids, if you have a car, you can survive going through a riot in Paris, you know, because you can zip your way through the fires and everything else that's going on. If you're on a bicycle, you might not manage it, you know. It's like,
well, that's right. Well, it's strange because I was actually due to go to actually join the Gilets Jaunes and go and see it and take pictures of it. And the only way that they could stop it happening was obviously to manufacture a pandemic. And you know, I just thought it was a shame that I couldn't go because, as you say, it was not reported anywhere, and it started specifically with targeting rural car owners with higher fuel duty and taxes. That's where this all started. But
isn't it extraordinary that just was not reported in the UK about the Gilets Jaunes? I think there was a couple of stories, and then if you looked at sort of, well, certainly James Deningpole would put stuff on his Twitter, and you see what was going on in Paris, but you'd actually have to find that news to find out what's going on. But I mean, it was an absolute fight for freedom. I mean, like in Hong Kong at the minute. I mean, you know, we're talking about, did Dominic Cummings' son take a pee in the woods in County Durham? That's what we're talking about. Whereas in the meantime, Hong Kong is just falling apart, and China's basically eating it up. And
well, the only channels that you can watch is RT. Now, RT used to they used to broadcast every Saturday, and I used to watch it every Saturday. But when those riots first started, they actually weren't riots. I remember watching it, and I did do a video about it. But people were, you know, it's brought all political persuasion people together, so that it wasn't left, right, or anything. It was everybody came together, and there was one quite significant thing that I watched. There was that some bicycles had fallen over, and people went across the road and stood them up because they got knocked over. So you knew these weren't nutcases who just wanted to set things up. You know, they were ordinary people. But yes, it's got completely and utterly lost, and
it has. And now that our little boy Chancellor Rishi Sunak is spending all the money, well, actually employing me at the minute. Basically, I'm on the dole, effectively furloughed from my job as a pilot. This is going to be an almighty bill to pay in the next few months and coming years. Do you think the motorists will get charged for this, fuel taxes, etc.?
That's absolutely going to happen. I don't think. I mean, I think we're in a sort of a honeymoon period where I don't think people have quite realised what's going to come. At all. You know, I mean, I was a worker in the 1970s. I can remember how bad that was. That was actually quite grim. But I think you know. I don't know whether people can take things being so bad, really, but they are going to get rough before they get better, because things are, you know, a lot of jobs won't exist anymore, and there's a lot of people in the motor trade won't be trading cars anymore when this is over, because they just won't be able to afford to do it.
Do you think there's a pent-up demand? Do you think in the short term there'll be a sort of boost in business, and then maybe the credit lines will run out?
I think there. I mean, there is. I was talking to Hugh about this earlier on. A lot of people have been talking to me about their PCPs. Is that they've taken a good hard look at what they've been paying and thinking, that's quite a lot of money to pay each month. You know, and also, you know, so they are looking at ways out of them. A lot of people in the car trade I've known know that there is coming. You know, there's going to be a huge demand, but they've been buying cheap cars. So they've actually been stockpiling. If they can afford to do it, if they have the money and the space, they've been buying cheap, decent cars, because they know people will have to buy cars just because they have to. You know, there will be default buys because, you know, cars are broken, or because PCPs have run out and people have just realised, no, all I want to do now is just have a car to get me from A to B.
The PCP thing is incredibly alarming. My sister's rather better off than me. She has a Range Rover. And she wanted to get out of it. It just keeps breaking down, funnily enough. She wanted to get out of it earlier, out of the PCP. And the guaranteed minimum value of the car was £42,000. That'd be a 3-year-old Range Rover.
Yeah.
And the dealer said, this was 3 months ago before lockdown, that they could only offer her £32,000 for the car. Wow. So it's negative equity 10. So she can wait now until October and give the car back effectively with nothing to pay. But if she wants to trade it in now, she'd be having to top up nearly £10,000 in the PCP. Is Jaguar Land Rover going to go bust? What's going on with these values? I don't understand. Who's going to pay money for that car? I mean,
but I also think
that's
a big mistake on the part of the dealer, because they would surely check with their finance, groups to say, for the guaranteed value, that should have been checked. Because, I mean, there's still quite a lot of demand for, Range Rover Sports. They do go for quite high money. So when they said it was that far short of the residual, I was quite shocked at that, actually.
Well, they are going to give the car back in October and buy outright a cheaper car, because it's been on a really low percent finance. It's like £500 a month or something they pay for this thing, and then it's like, my goodness, they realise actually how far out they are at the end of the deal. If JLR have got tens of thousands of cars like this, I mean, is the business even going to be viable? I don't even know. I haven't a clue.
I would imagine it'll be the finance company that will take the hit. So whoever finances them, unless they have their own bank, then they'll be in real trouble. But if they've got independent financial, just brokers and bankers that do it, then they'll take the hit. Like
the amazing thing I heard was that if Ford was to be put on the stock market today, it would not be seen as a car manufacturer. It would technically be a bank, because Ford Credit is bigger than Ford Manufacturing. Effectively, Ford Manufacturing makes cars for Ford Credit to sell, and it's absolutely extraordinary. The Ford's credit loan book is terrifying. If car values go down, we are in big trouble.
Well, I remember, I'm sure you too as well, James, at the time of the last big recession in 2008 in America, where you can get a cheap car quite easily. Even in those years, it wasn't that they would give you all sorts of incredible deals, but it was so bad for Chrysler that, in trying to sell a PT Cruiser, they would sell it to you over 5 years, I think it was, for $100 a month, and at the end of the term, it was yours. So it was literally $6 and $7 grand in dollars. And I think even that didn't persuade people to buy it. It was that bad. But it was incredible.
Well, the thing about these sorts of circumstances is it does expose the car industry for what it is that it doesn't really work, in that they make more cars than they know what to do with, and it is a big scam. It is a big leasing company scam. It is a big pre-registration scam, and this may lead to manufacturers not existing or getting very, very small. It's very, very difficult to go from making hundreds of thousands of cars to tens of thousands of cars. It's almost impossible to do. So there is a big business model that's either going to need a lot more money to be borrowed from governments, or it's going to break.
Yeah.
So James, when sanity finally hits, and we have the biggest depression since, I don't know, when was it, like 1600 or something? No one's got any money. Then a certain sort of brand of car buying is called bangernomics. So your original book might become a bestseller because people realize that they haven't got any money. So what I would like to, when you get your bangers, I used to read Autocar a lot, maybe not so much these days, but I used to follow your cars. The 7 series you had, you call it Baby Shark, your little 3 series now?
That's right, yeah.
Elon Musk's first car was a BMW 320 like yours. How do you source a good car for sort of a few £100? And what do you look for? You know what you're doing, but for Hugh's listeners, how do they not fall into a huge hole?
It is very difficult. I mean, there is always risk if you're buying a used car. I mean, there's an awful lot of risk in it every single time. You can make a mistake. The clutch can go the next day. A water pump can go the next day. There is, most of the time, there's no way of telling that's going to happen. What you do is you hedge your bets. So if I'm driving up a gravelly drive, that's a very good indication to me that these people can look after their cars. You've got to be a real snob about it. If you're speaking to the seller and you think, ooh, you sound a bit dodgy to me. They probably are, and that's the best way. And that's the best way to take it. What most people should try and buy are family-owned cars that have been in families for a good few years. There's lots of bills. It hasn't got 27 owners. All the tyres match. It's real basic stuff like that. But honestly, the best cars that you will ever buy are family-owned cars because because they've had to keep the cars running and they've got bills for it. So it's really basic stuff. But but there again, you can get lucky. You can buy a car with no service history or no nothing, and it'll run for 5 years without you touching it.
Do you tend to look for a reason for sale, James? Or, I mean, if there's an obvious reason they're trying to get rid of it, or does that just vary? Yeah.
Well, it is very strange in that the psychology of it all. If you ask people questions, most of the time they will actually, people find it quite hard to lie, and they will tell you an awful lot. So if you talk to someone about it, why are you doing this? And you are right. Yeah, if you're persistent with them, you will normally get to the truth, or their story will fall apart or whatever. But most people will say, well, yeah, I don't like it, or I don't know, it broke down 3 times last week, so I've had enough of it. And quite genuinely, some people will tell you that if you ask them nicely, if you're friendly, and you can get to the bottom of it. But really, it is actually just trying to find honest cars, and it is possible to do that. It is possible. It's the real basics. You're just looking for history, and then you're just looking for it. And it is things like tires. If there's a different tire on each wheel, that's telling you something, isn't it? And these days we're very lucky because the MOT history, you can look over the last few years, you can see what the recurring problems is. That's something you could never do before.
And is that something you can do can anyone look at a car's MOT history?
Yeah, and go into the database.
Oh, anyone can.
Online. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
You go online, and it details what it fails on, what the advisories are, and that tells you an awful lot. And that's the thing I think that has transformed certainly buying private cars in the last few years. You can really tell. And also, I always think there's nothing wrong with buying from dealers, even cheaper cars, because they still have a responsibility to sort the car out. So that if it does break down, does blow up, you still have a comeback.
Yeah. Now I was reading in the history on the Free Car Mag about what you did, and you were like the manager for in terms of car magazines, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah, I did do that for a while for Car. Yeah.
And Jonathan and we were big fans of Car Magazine, and we used to get it years ago. And we used and Andrew as well. It's funny. Sorry, it's a bit dark in the back of your room there, Andrew, and I can just see your face that's coming up there. But you'll put a light on. And we used to love the good, the bad, and the ugly.
We used to laugh our heads off at the comments. We used to. I remember getting the magazine. It was such good fun, and you don't maybe get that these days. I think Chris Harris is quite good. I quite like Chris Harris. He's funny. He does a good thing on Instagram, but that kind of honest sort of reviews of cars, they were so funny, weren't they, Hugh?
Well, it was either a for and against, and then the sum up. And I mean, did you ever find that? Did you actually write those yourself, or did you have people there that you would send in the edits, and then you would have a look at them when a new car was being put through its paces?
No, I sort of redid it all, and I think it was in the very early 90s. So some of the best ones probably weren't me, because the best one was that was the one that Elvis shot, wasn't it? He had a Di Tommaso Pantera, and it was Elvis shot his, and that showed you what a bad car it is, and that's the best car review ever, isn't it? Really.
James, John and I want to know who wrote the FSO Polonaise. Good, bad, and ugly. Because I don't know.
Be careful, you have an FSO Polonaise owner in the midst here, which might or might not be rude.
I tested FSO Polonaise 1.5 SLE, and I remember what it said. It was listed all what you could get, 1300, 1500. There's 4 twin headlamps against everything else. Summer in Poland, this is a luxury good, but so's bread. I just love that. Car magazine was the first car magazine I read, and that was my magazine of choice, really.
Yeah,
Back in the day when LJK Setright and all them lot were still alive. So
they were real philosophers of cars, weren't they? I mean, James, you're probably the most sort of like that these days, but they saw the car as just how it fitted into life, you know, and how it improved our lives and what it meant politically. I mean, that's what you maybe don't get these days.
You do you don't get
versus the.
No, that's right. You just don't get the deep thinkers, and that was the great thing about that. In that you probably didn't understand half of what LJK was saying, but actually,
I remember going on about the Honda Prelude constantly.
Yeah,
going on about the Honda Prelude, and he hated because the first one I bought, I was living in Germany at the time, feeling lonely and wanted to read something, and I bought. This is in 1989. I saw a car magazine and thought, "Oh, cars!" and bought it from a train station. And it was the issue comparing the big test was the Mazda MX-5 had just come out. They had the TVR S4, the Lotus Elan SE Turbo, and the Z1, BMW Z1. And LJK Setright hated the TVR because he said it sounds like a hooligan. He just couldn't stand it. Too noisy. And I just thought that was just brilliant. I liked him. You know, I disagree.
James, what was LJK Setright's history? Because like you, I was probably very young and I used to read it. I didn't really know what it was on about. I probably missed most of his references.
Well, I mean, he was a very erudite man. I know he was a concert standard clarinetist. I think he was also a qualified lawyer as well. And I know someone who knew him at the end of his life, and basically he never had any money at any point. So even though he looked like, you know, a gent, and he had a wonderful, you know, taste in cigars and fine wines and stuff, but he obviously never had any money whatsoever. But I find that's tremendously reassuring, isn't it? Really, that someone just lives so much. I mean, it's a bit like I used to love George Bishop because it was so irreverent. You know, I mean, really, he was biting the hand that, you know, fed him, really, when he went on Carl.
That's the best kind.
And we just don't have those sorts of larger than life characters. It's very, very boring. It's all, you know, there really are so few people. And again, I think that's why people responded so well to things like Top Gear, because again, you've got characters doing things, and that's how those people are. You know, they are actually like that. Jeremy Clarkson is like that. James May is like that, and that comes over, and that's the sort of thing that we're missing now. You know, we seem to have people without any real character at all, and any real, as you say, zest for life. You know that's the thing, to see cars in the context of being, you know, such important, you know, parts of our life, and they should be celebrated.
It is. It's such an expression of who you are. You can tell so much about somebody by the car that they drive, even the small choices they make, whether it's an alloy wheel or the color of the car. It is absolutely fascinating. I know Hugh and I, when someone came, all our teachers would judge them by the cars that they bought. I remember all our teachers had such old cars that we operate. Remember Operation K Plate? That'd be 1992. We tried to get our teachers to get new cars by having Operation K Plate. And the key teacher was the first to bite, and he ended up buying a Vauxhall Nova. We were devastated, weren't we, Hugh? It was just such a dreadful car.
It was quite funny because we had our school photograph of about 300 odd pupils, and in the background they couldn't move the nurse's brown Maestro. So trying to get in contact with it.
The brakes had seized on.
Yeah, it was all been stuck for months, and they've been trying to get her to move it, and it wouldn't go. And so they had the scaffolding up with everyone, you know, standing on the scaffolding, and at the side of it was half a B-Reg brown Maestro, whatever it was, in the side. And they were not impressed, as it was a private school, and they thought this is not on. So I remember they were trying to get people to stand in front of it or anything they could. You know, they couldn't Photoshop it at that time. There was no software out. So when they got the big picture through at the end of the year, you could just see this brown Maestro at the side of the lot, which did not look great.
Well, Hugh and I at school in sixth form, we had really far too little to do, so we decided to have the Banger Club. It wasn't that. I mean, it was the Banger Club. We were trying to buy old cars. Hugh had a friend called Louise Aiken Walker, who was actually the Ladies' World Rally Champion around the time, and she used to take Hugh banger racing. So we thought the kids at school would like banger racing. So we put up an advert saying we're starting a banger racing club, and everyone was really on board, weren't they, Hugh?
Yeah.
In the end, the teachers just shut it down. They just wouldn't let us do it.
Well, we were going to use
insurance reasons.
I think I'd assumed that I could just get a hold of a field next to the school, and that whoever owned that field would just give it to us, even though there were horses in it. And we were just, we're completely naive. And we thought, and they'd even agreed to pay us. I couldn't believe our classmates even said they'd pay us about 20 quid a term.
Did we take deposits? I can't remember.
No, I
think we needed £100 for the banger, but we never got the field because the horses are in it. We thought we'd just race around the horses, but turns out horse owners don't like that.
But no, I think that's the thing with us in that generation. We just loved cars and loved driving. Anything we could do to get behind the wheel and to race. And with the car industry, like every type of car just about has its following, almost its cult following. When you think, I mean, you'll agree, I'm sure, James, with like Land Rover, you've got a whole cult following who buy Defenders, and now even more so because they don't make the old one anymore. So it's like I think we have to somehow get that culture back in of what's great about cars. And what makes them different. And I used to joke, when they started having these self-driving cars and it could stay in the lane and everything, we thought, what manufacturer would kind of ensue with the character of the car? So, Ford is very normal. It's not going to go off lane. It's going to be very sensible and fine. But if it was Alfa Romeo, could you imagine Alfa Romeo self-driving?
Yes.
It doesn't care about how close you are to the car in front. It's just like, it's going to flash its lights to get you,
the adaptive cruise control would be 1 meter off the car in front, flashing his lights. Yeah.
In fact, maybe its whole goal is for an Alfa Romeo self-driving bit of software to actually drive faster than the person could in real life. So it gets you home from work in even a quicker time through the traffic, and see how many people can peep at you when you're in the back of your car if you're sitting and pretending to drive. But it's funny because I suppose we know our cars, or what cars we like, and that's what we're trying to get over to people, especially the young people. That cars are fun. There's a whole world of excitement and a life to enjoy with them. And it's kind of funny now because everyone's going, like all the manufacturers, they just want to make things like SUVs. Everything's SUV, where before it was maybe a sports car or like a convertible or a coupe or something. And I'm a big Alfa Romeo fan, and I think. They say, and only just but why don't they bring back something like a Sud, the Alpha Sud or something light and
never heard you say that before.
But it's like if there was a car that they could bring back that you would like again, James, what would it be? What would be one of your favorite cars that you think could be rekindled?
Well, I mean, there is a fundamental problem in that sports cars, as they used to be, are dying out. I mean, there actually isn't a demand for them, and the only people buying MX-5s are like old people. It's like the first choice of a retired person is to go and buy an MX-5, and that is completely wrong. It doesn't. So it doesn't work the way it used to. Because when you were a young man, you'd think, oh yeah, I want a Triumph Spitfire or something, and that. Or an MGB or something, but that just doesn't work. It doesn't operate like that anymore at all. But yeah, I mean, if you're going to bring a car back, you want a Mark 1 Golf GTI with nothing on it at all, and wind-up windows, and it was all about the driving. And it's also the same with the original Mini. It was all about the driving. There was no frills on it. It was just, but again. This is something that motoring journalists go on about and car enthusiasts do, but actually people in the real world don't go and buy cars like that.
That's
the terrible thing. There's a lot of people going on about the Alpine at the moment that might die because there just isn't the demand for it, and because of the current economic situation it may die. But that's mainly because people haven't gone and bought it. At the end of the day, people would think, I'd rather have a 911. They're actually not that. They're actually not that keen on it. We can all dream and say, oh yeah, it'd be great to have a stripped out car, but nobody apart from us four actually wants a stripped car. So that isn't the way to market things.
I don't want all the crap they put on it.
Yeah.
When I get into a car, I need these pedals, I need this sticky thing, I need some kind of engine-y majiggy at the front. Wheels, they're kind of useful, and this big round majiggy there. The seat is quite nice. And it cracks me up that they'll add 10 tons of weight onto something and then start shaving off grams and call it a Superleggera. It's like, chuck out all of this insulation, chuck out the double glazing, chuck out massaging seats, and just have a car, because it'll weigh about a ton less anyway then.
It's useful though that something like the BMW X5M has an option of a carbon fiber roof to save weight. It's really good though, isn't it?
It's like oh god, I was going to say something earlier. Never mind.
I was out for my government-approved shopping trip today, and the most interesting cars I saw were both two BMW 3 Series, from the ones that were produced from about 1984 to 1990, that model, driven by young people. And they're the two cars that I can remember today. One was the 325i convertible, which looked cool AF. Another was an absolutely beaten up 316, which I thought was even cooler. It kind of had steel wheels on it and a kind of young guy driving it. What I would like, though, I do need automatic, and I do want CarPlay, and I do want cruise control. So rather like Singer with their 911s, James, is there a company which can take something like Baby Shark? I know, is that an automatic with air conditioning anyway?
It is, strangely enough, factory.
That's quite nice.
It's weird, yeah, but it's great. It's great. Suits me.
Yeah, and could you put on that, say, cruise control and a CarPlay system? Would that be easy enough to do?
Absolutely.
Because that would do me.
Yeah, no, I mean, that was the only thing when you were talking earlier, I just thought, well, Singer, but it has to be cheaper, doesn't it?
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Yeah. And it'd be nice if somebody, maybe we should all crowdfund this together and make interesting cars again. As you say, they just look fantastic. Cars from the 80s and 90s now. They're just not overblown. They're not overstyled, and as you say, they just haven't got wasteful weight all over them. It would be good if somebody could do that.
If you could take sort of a car rather like Baby Shark or the one after that, and you could maybe, if you got used to sort of doing them up and sort of doing the welding where it's needed, and you could put those out for sort of 15,000 each, but with CarPlay, maybe cruise control, automatic conditioning, there's got to be a market there. And I'm sure if you did enough, you could make money out of it.
Yeah,
because they're interesting.
No, that's right. I mean, the only problem is actually working on cars, and as you say, when it comes to rust and stuff like that, they do start to get expensive, and it's very difficult to find the right price point for people. It's like the biggest dream for most of us is to think, oh, wouldn't it be great to have a car company? But I mean, we would just run it into the ground, wouldn't we? I mean, we'd just be the worst people ever to.
The accountants would be like this.
I would get everything. I would source it from Dacia and Fiat. I'm sure it would be absolutely fine.
Can you imagine Koenigsegg or something like that? Because I love Koenigsegg. Christian von Koenigsegg is a nut job. That guy is insane. I love him. I wanted them to buy Saab, so Saab could be saved by mad Swedish people.
Yeah.
But can you imagine us working there? It'd be like, I think we need to test the Regera again. Why? I don't know. Probably there's something wrong with it. So I'm just going to nip outside with it. Is that okay? No. But you go on. What's that roaring noise? You're right. We'd just be insane.
See, what we need is a
perfect car for John, though. If you want automatic and some nice bits, but you want it slightly older style with a bit of fun, how about the Brabus SLK, the original one?
Yeah.
Before the MG came along, the one with a 6.5 litre V8 shoehorned into the front of a hairdresser's car.
There's some great machines out there. I'm almost tempted to go Tesla Model 3, but I just don't know about electric. I don't know if I can sleep with all the children in Africa who died making my batteries.
Tell you what, watching, I watch Harry's Garage, which you was talking, James, about the lost art of presenting or talking about cars. And I think Harry Metcalf, you must know him, I guess, quite well. I love the way he talks about stuff because he tells you the bad things, he tells you the good things. He's very honest about it, and he drives it along. And the enthusiasm of the guy, and he's 6'2", so he's the same as me. So if he can fit in a car, I can fit in a car. Perfect. And he took the Model 3, and he's so obviously a nerd like me, because he talks about the equivalent of MPG, the kilowatt hours and all this kind of stuff, and the charging. He sort of dealt with all of that kind of stuff. And that was the only time I've seen anybody talk about any of those cars, the plug-in hybrids and the Teslas and this kind of stuff. And I came away knowing more useful information afterwards than when I went in. Because all the others, they just go, oh, look, if you press this button, it will do 0 to 60 in 3 seconds. I don't care. I'm never going to do that.
I would.
At the lights and
my range would be like 50 miles because everywhere I'd go be in ludicrous mode.
Okay, fair point, John. But if it did 10 miles on a charge, you wouldn't. And
I'd limit myself to 10 miles probably.
Get in the car, can I drive to Blackpool and back? You know, whatever. Stuff, normal stuff. And then on the way, humiliate people with my acceleration. But, I'd consider a Tesla Model 3 if I had the millions of pounds to run it and had any of the charging facilities anywhere in North Wales, which they don't.
The Scottish government gives you a £35,000 interest-free loan if you buy an electric car. So if you get a base Model 3 Tesla for £39,000, it's interest-free for, I think it's 3 years.
Okay.
That's courtesy of the Scottish government. That's amazing, isn't it?
Oh, cool. So can I take the 39 grand and get myself a TR6?
No. Nicholas Sturgeon says no.
Turbo. That's what I'd have.
No, Nippy Sturgeon does not approve. Sorry.
If TVR makes electric cars, yeah. But
can
you imagine if they did that?
But going on an interesting note, maybe I've come up with a plan, a light bulb moment. That we were talking before about these great old classic cars. Now, there was a video done a year or two ago by one of these kind of exploring groups, and they went to one of the airfields down south somewhere, and it had a stockpile of thousands of cars that had all been traded in, I think, from the when it was the, what was the thing? Oh, when they gave you the guaranteed, the buyback scheme. What was the big what did they call it? It was about 10 years ago.
The cash for clunkers or whatever it was.
Yeah, the one, and they were supposed to scrap them, the scrappage scheme.
Scrappage, yeah. After the last
clunkers.
Yeah, they had left all these cars. Now, goodness knows how many years they'd been sitting on this airport or this airfield. But they had everything. And someone had taken a drone, first of all, just to see what it was like. And there was Mark 1 GTIs all stacked up. There was Volkswagen Beetles, Land Rover Defenders. There were even all the classics like, Jaguar Mark IIs and all sorts of stuff, big old Chryslers and amazing stuff that was left there. Some of it had been a little bit vandalized, but most of it was pretty much okay. And I think if you use that as a museum and you said, right, to the youngsters, this is a history lesson, and walk them past these lines of cars, because they had just about every different type of car that was there, and they're all kind of cult cars as well. They weren't ordinary. All of them were quite special, because I think there were ones obviously that they had the stuff that was dull had been scrapped, but all the main stuff that was obviously they thought maybe we should keep this.
Can I tell you what his actual idea was when he saw these cars? He was so outraged that you could get a BMW X3 on Motability. This is the truth. Hugh said that the scrappage cars should be given to disabled people.
No, they should be given to me.
That was his idea. That was your idea, that Motability should be all the cars they took in the part exchanges.
You say you failed in politics, Patrick.
Well, it would cut the budget a bit, but
that was your idea.
That was a long time ago.
Oh, wow.
But it was amazing to see, and you can find it on YouTube. There's all these kind of exploring these things, but it was incredible because it had every kind of amazing car that you would love to own, and it was sitting there rotting away on a runway.
In a way, it makes me so angry because
you think there should have been exceptions, because it was Porsches. There was like Porsche 927s, 947s, even 911s. Just people had traded in. Of the ancient ones.
They put this out as an environmentally friendly solution to the world's problems. Except you've got to manufacture new cars, which cost huge amounts of energy and resources, and then you've got to dispose of all the old cars, which cost huge amounts of energy and resources and poisons everything. Just use the old bloody cars. Use the old cars until they're dead. Fix them, use them a bit more, and stop wasting.
But it was to kickstart the scrappage scheme was to kickstart the economy. But all it did was put about £50,000 Hyundai i10s on the road because people were just trading in their cars, getting the 2,000 quid as their deposit on an i10.
It got a few wet behind the ears morons to vote for them. That's what it did. Some people with no clue that believe what Radio 4 says. Just my nut. None of them got a clue.
Well, on that note, as we pass the hour mark, thank you. Yeah, we've been talking for an hour. I hope you've enjoyed it, James. It's been a pleasure to have you on the show.
Definitely.
And,
no, thank you very much. I very much appreciate you having me. It's been very good chat.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. It's all,
I do approve.
It's all motoring banter. But there's great stuff out there. To let our viewers know as well about where they can find your book and the free car mag. You're free to do a plug. What would you like to?
That's very, very kind of it. Yeah, you can find. I'm at bangernomics.com. You can send me any questions. I'll always answer them. I do have a magazine called freecarmag.com, and you can download that. It's free because it's called Free Car Mag. And yeah, my books are still available. You can still get all the Bangernomics books. And Demotorized is the one I'm very, very proud of because I wrote that this year. And so please have a look at it. It's me standing up for the motorists, which is what should be done an awful lot more. So yeah, you can find that at the usual places. But you can even get downloads of my books from me as well if you don't want to have a real one. So they are quite cheap. You can get a PDF sent to your inbox if you wish. But I appreciate anything at all. Really, because there is no money in car journalism at all, ever. It's all finished. It's all over.
Yeah. Well, a big shout out to Free Car Mag because you very kindly gave us an ad in that a wee while ago, last week or 2 weeks ago, and we actually got I think at least over 100 odd listeners that came to on Podbean from that alone. So we saw a huge uptake. Which was fantastic. So it was really very kind and definitely shows that you've got a good readership there. And not just for coming to listen to our video, but to read your stuff and
but it's kind of good to have me on. But again, we've all got to support each other with things like this, and it is a bit like herding cats sometimes. Trying to get all these people to say, look, if you plug me, I'll plug you, but that's what we have to do in the car community in order to make it all better. We're not all scary men with beards and sandals and beanie hats.
That's the thing. Well, stay on the line, but I'll end the show there. But thanks very much to all our viewers and listeners of the Car Sim and Race Driver Show. You've been listening to me, Hugh Hattrick, but more importantly, to Jonathan Sutherland, to Andrew Marr, and our extremely special guest. It is James Ruppert. Remember the motto, it's time to drive fast and try not to crash. See you soon.
Tanga.